Welcome to Short Movie Channel with a new movie summary. At the beginning of our film, we learn that in the near future, a catastrophe wipes out entire populations in just 3 days. The event happens so suddenly that people drop dead where they stand, without any chance to react. In a small American town, we meet Dell, who believes he is the last man alive on Earth. He settles into a quiet daily routine, living alone in the library where he used to work. He takes care of the books, organizing them so that if anyone ever comes, they'll be able to find what they need. For food, he grabs canned goods from the supermarket, but he also enjoys fishing, since, unlike mammals, fish haven't gone extinct yet. Dell has set up a well-organized system for the town. Every day, he visits abandoned houses, always covering his face, cleaning out one house at a time. He collects useful things like batteries, engines, and gas for his car. Sometimes, he even takes books back to his library. If he finds a body, he carefully wraps it and buries it, then marks an X in front of the house and logs it on his map. One night, after watching an old movie as usual, Dell is startled by a loud noise outside. When he steps out, he sees fireworks lighting up the sky, a clear sign that someone else is out there. The next morning, he sets off to investigate and finds a crashed car. The driver, Grace, had been drunk when the accident happened. Dell checks the car and realizes she's the one who set off the fireworks. He also notices that she has a gun. A while later, Grace wakes up in an unfamiliar house, with a bandage wrapped around her head. She tries to open the door, but it's locked. Dell stands outside and asks her a few questions. Grace explains that she doesn't know anyone, and she has no idea why she's still alive, just like Dell once felt. She tells him she found the gun on the road and kept it for protection. But Dell doesn't want her around. He prepares a car for her and tells her he'll unlock the door, but she has to count to 100 before leaving. However, Grace doesn't listen. She bursts out of the room immediately. This forces Dell to leave the house quickly. He hands her the car keys and walks away, ignoring her pleas to stay. But Grace doesn't give up. She follows him around, offering to help him clean houses. She tells him that if they work together, they'll get things done faster. As they move to another town, Dell remains skeptical, insisting that there are no more cities left. He doesn't accept her as a partner, but Grace refuses to back down. She follows him everywhere, making noise and disrupting his once quiet life. Over time, her presence changes him. After being alone for so long, he starts to feel something he had forgotten: companionship. Even when they eat together, he makes her sit at a separate table. He also refuses to discuss theories about what caused the catastrophe. One day, frustrated, he snaps at her, telling her that he had felt alone even when people were still around. Feeling unwanted, Grace decides to pack her things and leave. But just as she gets into the car, Dell approaches her and says he's changed his mind. He suggests she stay a little longer to see if they can get used to living together. From then on, they clean houses as a team. Grace learns his routine and even documents the names of the people he buried. He remembers every single one, even those who owed him money or borrowed books from the library. And when the time comes to bury the dead, Grace feels that Dale is acting strange because he doesn't say a single word to bid farewell to those who have passed away. She tells him that every time she found a body on the road, she would write her name for 10 seconds. Dale jokes with her and says he will write his name for 10 minutes as a sign of mourning for the body they are burying. Sometimes he tells her that he misses the silence, especially when Grace talks too much while they're getting food or when she blasts music loudly in the car. But Dale never wants to upset her. One day, Grace notices that Dale isn't in the library, so she takes the opportunity to sneak into his office. She is shocked when she finds stacks of files filled with pictures taken from inside people's homes. The whole thing seems creepy, and Grace doesn't understand why Dale does that. So, she takes her bike and goes for a ride to clear her mind. Suddenly, she hears a noise coming from a house. When she goes inside, she is surprised to find a small dog that somehow survived, just like them. She takes it back to the library to keep it as her pet. Dale is surprised by this sudden change of events, and they start coming up with names for the dog. In the end, they decide to name it Clabab. Over time, Dale and Grace start getting used to each other. They sit at the same table, and Grace shares childhood memories with him. She tells him she once had 2 goldfish. However, she still doesn't have the courage to take down her hair because she doesn't want Dale to see the mysterious scar on the back of her neck. A few days later, they find the dog tearing up a book. Dale gets mad and tells Grace to clean up the mess while he takes the dog outside. But when he tries to do that, the dog bites him. Grace helps clean and stitch up his wound, but Dale is still very annoyed by the dog's presence. No matter how much Grace tries to convince him that the dog has its good sides, Dale just can't stand it. The next morning, when Grace wakes up, she can't find the dog anywhere. She has no idea how it disappeared when she had tied it up. As they go out searching for it, Dale admits that he let the dog loose so it could take care of its needs. He makes it sound like an excuse, but in reality, he just wanted to get rid of it. Grace gets furious at him. When they return to the library, Grace storms off, grabs the files with the pictures, and accuses Dale of seeing people as mere objects. She tells him that while he was living a lonely, miserable life, she was actually happy. Dale goes to bed that night feeling guilty. The next day, he takes her to his secret farm and gives her permission to take care of the plants as a way of apologizing. Indirectly, he lets her know that her trial period is over, and now he trusts her to clean houses on her own. This way, they can cover more areas faster. A new routine begins. They work together, and Grace even starts helping him prepare food. However, she still keeps her scar hidden from him. One day, she finds a walkie-talkie in one of the houses, which allows them to communicate even when they are far apart. Another day, Grace discovers a house that isn't on the map. Dale arrives, furious, and tells her she shouldn't be there. She realizes that he doesn't want to clean this house, which makes her understand that it must be Dale's old home. When she tells him she understands, Dale finally opens up. He tells her about the first people who died when the catastrophe happened. They were just kids back then. He finally faces the reality of it all and agrees to clean the house with her. But this time, when he buries his family, it's much harder for him than burying strangers. This time, Dale stays silent for more than 10 seconds in mourning. Once they finish burying his family, Grace finally confesses that there are things she hasn't told him, but now she has to. She helps him sleep, and when Dale wakes up the next morning, he finds himself in the house Grace had first taken him to. He grabs a gun and heads downstairs, only to be hit with the shock of his life. Grace is sitting at a table with 2 strangers named Violet and Patrick. She calls them Mom and Dad, but it's clear that she doesn't really believe they are her parents. Violet and Patrick seem strangely happy. They explain to Dale that there are other survivors living together as a community in California. Dale never knew about this because he never thought to leave this town and look for others. Otherwise, he would have seen the signs and notices hanging along the roads. Dale is furious with Grace for not telling him about this and making him believe they were among the last people alive. He storms out of the house, ignoring Grace as she runs after him, trying to explain. She tells him they're not really her parents. The community leaders assign them to live with her as if they were her real parents. They're not even married. Grace thinks they're crazy, but Dale doesn't care. He pushes her aside, gets into the car, and drives away. When he gets back to the library, he lets out all his pain and anger, alone. At that time, Violet asks Grace to return with them to California because she can no longer handle everything on her own and wants them to be a real family. Before the 3 of them leave, Dale goes to the library and tries to convince Grace to come with them to California, telling her that people there will appreciate his talent. He also mentions that a team of doctors has discovered new methods to help people overcome the complexities of the human mind. However, his words don't seem to affect Dale, so he leaves her a note inside one of the books, just in case she changes her mind, and then he walks away. After some time, Grace returns to California with Violet and Patrick. She sits there, crying as she looks at the scars on her parents' backs, remembering what awaits her in California. Meanwhile, Dale tries to get back to his daily routine, but his loneliness and isolation start to get to him, making him lose control. Eventually, he decides to take out his frustration on his old house, throwing rocks at it. That night, he dreams of Grace watching old movies in the library. He wakes up, pulls out all the photo files, and tries to describe what he sees. He remembers people's faces, names, home addresses, personalities, and even their reading preferences, realizing that he was never truly alone and that his current way of life no longer suits him. Dale starts searching the library for the address Patrick left him inside one of the books, not caring about the other books as he throws them around for the first time in his life. Then, he sets off for California. His journey is long and exhausting, but he is prepared, bringing along tools he might need. Whenever he finds the road blocked by other cars or runs out of gas, he simply switches to another vehicle and keeps going. Finally, when he reaches California, he feels something strange as he looks at the city lights. He tries to overcome his isolation until he finds Grace's house. He sees Violet and Patrick with her inside, so he waits for them to fall asleep before grabbing a gun and sneaking into the house. It doesn't take him long to find Grace's room, but when he gets there, he's met with a disturbing sight. She's hooked up to a device that is supposedly meant to correct her behavior and erase the trauma she experienced when she lost her family in the disaster. In reality, everyone in the city undergoes this treatment, as it is considered the only way for them to move on and live happily again. Wasting no time, Dale apologizes to Grace for his past actions and then helps her remove the device. Fortunately, she is strong enough to stand up and walk with him. As they make their way out, they run into Patrick, who tries to stop them, explaining that the city system is the best solution. But Grace takes the gun and shoots him immediately. At that moment, Violet appears and casually mentions that she once had a daughter. Then, in her usual odd manner, she starts looking for cleaning supplies to wipe up the blood, as if it were just spilled milk. After gathering her belongings and taking her goldfish, Grace leaves the city with Dale, ignoring the people living in their artificial happiness. As they hit the road, she tells him she doesn't regret killing Patrick, and Dale reassures her that it's completely fine. They then head back to their hometown, and with that, our movie comes to an end. If you enjoyed the film, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.